Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Confessions from the Coffin. I'm Luna Rising,
And I'm Darcy Darkness.
and today's episode, as you can tell, the title is Confessions from the Coffin. Today's episode, we are going to have two different versions, I wouldn't say of this specific episode, but it's going to be, today's episode is about Dracula. And then we will eventually down the road have one about lores of vampires. Yeah. So,
And obviously everything to do with Dracula and the lore and how it's changed, but this is predominantly just about Dracula, the man himself.
yep. And basically, the main topic of today is who played the best Dracula. Yes, there will be lore, there will be gore, and it is Dracula. So I guess in other words, there will be a little bit of eroticism.
And
I
that's just
mean,
him himself.
yeah, I mean, you can't
Just him.
exactly can't have Dracula without having a little bit of pornography, I guess. But how are you doing today, Darcy? I know we've been talking. I know you and the family
Yeah.
are kind of ill.
We are members of the apocalypse once again, and the fourth time is not anywhere is just as as the first, gotta say. Yeah, we're alive, we're kicking, but we're just literally fighting the plague, but we're fine. Other than that, how are you?
Yeah, I have not been unfortunate enough to get it, so I'm thankful for
Never had
that.
it.
Nope.
You've never had
And
it
I've
in the
actually
entire time. You go
nope.
outside.
My
You go-
I do go outside. Go ahead.
Confessions from the Dark Side is actually Confessions from the Coffin this week, and we are dedicating this episode to the man himself, Dracula, Vlad the Impaler, or Dracula. And I've started off with At First Bite. The first play adaptation of Dracula was in 1924 by the Irish actor and playwright R. Hamilton Deane and was then revised by the writer John L. Balderstone in 1927. And this was the first official authorised adaptation of Bram Stoker's 1897 novel Dracula. Before Dracula, there was, I said, here's a brief history lesson in some mythical lore. Vlad the Impaler, Vlad Dracul in Transylvania, Romania, ruled Wallachia, or I can't pronounce these fucking places, so if I butcher them, I'm sorry. Impaling his victims in spikes in a battle. A few movies have showed this. Mercy Brown, a rival, if you will, of Dracula, but was an actual real person from Rhode Island and was blamed for a bunch of her family's deaths. This was during the 1800s. Many people were dying of health conditions like TB and the plague, but deaths of surviving family members were used, and they were when she was accused of being a vampire, they exhumed her body to check for the decay process. This was something, again, hasn't changed much, and fingernails and hair have been known to grow after the death of a person goes, and she was basically just being used for a scapegoat for deaths in her family and around her. As she was laid to rest in an icy grave in New England, and the townspeople, it sounds like a witch, it does, a witch hunt in the 1870s, which was, again, always a good witch hunt in the 1800s, I can imagine. So I am not surprised they cut out her heart and burned it. Then they fed her ashes to the last living relative in her family, which was her brother, who then died. I'm not surprised, because if she was diseased with the plague and you burnt her fucking heart and fed it to him, you're obviously giving him the germs and whatever the other fuck was wrong with her to him, so I'm not surprised they died. Drinking blood has been something of a ritual, even a sacrifice from many different cultures, yet they are being accused of, they're not being accused of being vampires. Again, because it's for religious sacrifices, then it's like not vampirism, even though it is. In English literature, the first vampire to ever be written about wasn't Dracula or Vlad Dracul, the Impaler. It was actually a satanic English lord, the Croglin vampire, in 1750. There's a vault with all the coffins. The bodies were intact in different stages of decomposition, but has never been verified. In Cumbria, with the bats, apparently a monstrous creature flew above a church building in 1733, but vampire bats weren't confirmed until 1832. A sketch of this was drawn by Charles Darwin. The Renwick, Cumbria creature was called the cockatrice, which was described as the head of a serpent with the feet, tail, and wings of a cockerel, which is not fucking scary in the slightest. It's funny. And this mythical lore tale has been around since the time, and the local villages speak of it even to this day, and is in the historical archives of the cockatrice. In 1977, an anthology of horror by Daniel Farson was released, and his genealogy makes him Bram Stoker's great-grandnephew. It seems it runs in the family. In the 12th century, William of Newbury had a terrifying encounter in Buckinghamshire, England, and with the help of some others, they realised a bunch of towns and villages were being attacked by unusual entities, so to make sure they didn't rise again, they dug up the corpses and burned them, and gave them absolution. This would stop them rising and waking up and becoming the undead that were terrorising villages and towns all over England, apparently. This was all to do with bodies not looking like they had decomposed enough for the time they had been dead, etc. And again, it would be a fluke or a coincidence here, but again, it's the people, and the people get crazy when they cannot explain what's in front of them with logic, but paranormal and supernatural evaluations seem much easier to digest than facts back then. Nothing much has changed now, has it? The general public weren't as smart as they are. Well, they were. So, the first English vampires, their remains can be found in a village in Yorkshire called Warren-per-Sea, and around 100 vampire corpses have been uncovered and buried deep within the pits in the village. The bones have been excavated, and it's around the 14th century they date back to, and again, there is a cannibalism rumour, and there are a lot of those in places where you have the coast and caves, etc., which is again not unusual for the UK, because most of our little towns are on the seaside coast. In conclusion, in our lifetime, it's believed that these corpses were the result of mutilations of these bodies to prevent them rising and returning to wreak havoc and destroying towns and villages. So a witch hunt, I cannot imagine. If you were weird and strange, you would literally be taken and well mutilated, and no innocent till proven guilty. So human beings haven't even evolved as much at all. Apparently the village was a ghost town, as so many ended up, well, again, humans. Well, basically what I was trying to say there was they became ghost towns because people didn't want to live there because people associated with the shit that happened there, so obviously you must be one too. There was another one found believed to have been from the 15th century of a 10-year-old boy who had a stone in his mouth, and this was thought to have been put there to prevent him from being able to bite in the event he rose from the dead and became a vampire, and this was common in Italy. When again they thought vampires existed and that this would prevent them from killing. Also, their head was severed from the rest of their body. That would prevent them from reliving. But hey ho. Vampires will always think Eastern Europe, but here it is in the UK. There's so many vampire lore and mythical events in history or unknown and unexplained tragedies and how they were executed in these times. Dracula, undead, bloodthirsty demon, or a misunderstood man with a lust for blood and war. I think it's the man with a lust for blood and war, wouldn't you say?
I would definitely agree.
So Vlad was born in 1431, who Dracula is actually based upon, but never had any association with Transylvania, even though there is a castle that is often believed to be the prince's place of residence. It was not. Although the area is very spooky and gives an ominous vibe with its big hills, mountain landscapes, and it gets proper foggy mist, and this again is used in the legends and the tall tales of Dracula, how he controls the mist and he can obscure and protect himself is also become one with the mist because it happens in Bram Stoker's Dracula and did other things. The mist and the fog shouldn't, or should I say, it couldn't do like these things to a woman, yes, because he becomes the mist and the woman, yes. So the castle that people go to, he never step foot in, by the way. Don't you feel robbed to be told about Transylvania and he's got nothing to do with it really at all? Vlad III, which is Dracula, his father, who was Vlad II, was the ruler and residence of Sara, Transylvania, but again, there aren't anything certainly set in stone if he was born there or not. Apparently, it was the Smithsonian Museum found that Vlad III and his brother were captured and held in a dungeon in Tokat, Turkey, which is in the north, and this castle has secret passageways, tunnels, and dungeons. Again, if I found a place like this, it would be my place of residence because of all the secret passageways, tunnels, and dungeons, of course. Well,
Absolutely.
So that would take LARPing to a whole new level of realism. It really fucking would. Vlad ended up being in an order called the Order of the Dragon. Now, in the movie The Last Voyage of the Demeter, which was out in 2023, sorry if this gives spoilers, but again, you haven't seen it, I'm sorry, but we've decided
No,
to do
it's fine.
So, The Order of the Dragon would actually be called the Order of Dracul, and that's why Vlad the Impaler became Vlad the Dracul, or is it Dracul Vlad or something? Like, it was like a title he had basically that Vlad became Dracula, and it's all because Dracul is Romanian for, well, they say demon, but it's dragon. So what I was explaining in my description when I'm reading this out is in the movie, The Last Voyages of Mishra, they're loading the boxes onto the ship, and one of the ship's crew sees the Order of the Dragon symbol, and he jumps off the boat and says, the ship, and says, nah, I'm not having, nope, whatever's attached to that symbol, I'm not having anything to do with it. So that's a good sign right there, isn't it? The fact that he doesn't want to have anything to fucking do with it, and he's literally jumped off the ship. Did that not give you like a hint that this is going to be some voyage if they don't want to actually be anywhere near it? Apparently it's a superstition. The symbol or the charm, even the totem, has seen bad things happen or occur. So the new surname of Vlad became Drac, which is a translation for dragon. Drac can also be translated as I said, demon, devil, or even evil. This is what drew Bram Stoker himself into looking into this, and it gave him the idea and the mindset for writing his masterpiece, which is Dracula. Which he became obsessed with after reading a book, a Romanian book, that was based on Vlad, Drac, and the Order of the Dragon. And it was actually him looking up to some church in Whitby in England that he actually came up with the idea of Dracula. So reading that book, and apparently a misty night, well, he was probably full of whatever mead or whatever, heaven knows what he was drinking, he came up with that idea. I'm just ad-libbing there, thinking it's mead, it could be wine, it could be anything, it could be moonshine, who the fuck knows. Vlad, it seems, would be pissed and wanting revenge for what had happened to, wait a minute, yeah, for his father, before him, his family, so no wonder when he did go to war to defend his family and his people and his lands, he did it in such a rough and dark way. He didn't want you to get back up from his attack and his army. A madman, yes, but again, we all have known madmen, dictators for all the wrong reasons, and it's the same: money, wealth, power, religion. What has changed? Absolutely nothing. Just weapons have become greater. Whoever has the biggest, shiniest weapons to offer, they are bought and sold, invested in both sides. There is a grey area between 1440 and 1456, which some say is when he switched sides, like a dirty turncoat that he was. But again, this could be a double agent type of thing, an undercover, maybe trying to get back what was taken from his family, which is smart. If it was executed correctly and no one knowing where he was or what he was doing in that time, would most likely have been the best chance to successfully do this. In 1460 and 1470s, a lot of talk and rumours created by word of mouth about Vlad, about his way, again, gossiping, has been around a lot longer, as there has been people there to listen and add to it. This is where Vlad the Impaler story came up, and as you can imagine, people with loose tongues, big mouths would elaborate and create images of gruesome scenes to frighten people, and will give you a visual you can't really unsee. Apparently he impressed the Pope with his wily ways as well. Vlad ended up in exile, as you do. All that goes up must come down. Yet in this time he managed to get married and have 2 children, but in 1476 he tried to take his rightful place again and was successful until he wasn't. He was ambushed and killed. He was buried in a monastery between Bucharest and Danube, but his tales of his reign are still haunting the world even in death, and being reenacted on the big screen by evolving the other people's visions and imagination. And that is us, with a brief little, the only other little thing I had was Dracula and Mina. A love story that spans an eternity. Even when she is lost, killed, or taken from the count, he remembers all versions of Mina, but he can always sense her. He knows her even though she cannot remember him, and this must hurt him. It's like, do I pursue her and have her fall in love with me again and be united, or let her live a life without heartache and pain? Watching someone else with his true love is painful and torture for him, but his choice is to watch, oversee, or to have her fall in love with him and risk her being taken from him. He usually takes the risk to be with the love of his life.
But these are most of the infamous Draculas that were played on screen, and we're going to start from the OG, the original, Max Schreck from Nosferatu in 1922. I have seen that movie.
So have I.
For the simple fact is, I mean, it is a classic. It's not as gory. It's not as violent as today's
Some.
Dracula movies. But I would say that one had a lot of, if I can remember correctly, it was more along the lines of more of a love story than anything, really.
But it is though.
Um,
It's a tragic love story.
it is. It is.
People don't realise it.
No, they don't. They do not. The second one we have on the list, from 1927, 1930, and again typecast in 1931, would be Bela Lugosi.
Yes, and another
Was in,
famous depiction
yes,
of
another,
Dracula. And very,
yes,
very
and
good.
broad. And I see you have
Exactly.
on there your original favorite.
Christopher Lee.
Yes,
What
Christopher
can I say? He's
Lee.
fucking brilliant. Even though he was typecast and he tried to get away with it, he ended up typecast for another fucking film after that with Lord of the Rings. So,
Yep.
eh,
Yep, but I mean, he did Dracula. I think from what you have, and if I can actually remember correctly, that time span is right. But 1958 to 1973, he did a very, very.
I can't hear
We got.
you.
I said he did a very long time of Dracula from 1958 to 1973.
I've never known anybody to do it for that length of time.
No, Lon Chaney Jr., the son of Dracula, 1943. Now that is a movie I have not seen yet, to be honest with you.
I've seen it on. It's weird. There's a lot of films that I've seen that have been muted. Don't ask. Some of my relatives let me watch things, but they would either mute them or fast forward them, including my own
Yeah.
mother. So it's like you can watch this, but you're not listening to it.
I think I've probably have seen it, to be honest with you, and I probably just don't remember it because there's some movies like The Son of Dracula or
That's a daytime movie, technically these days, by
yeah,
the standards. You'd see it on one of those channels. Like we'd have it like Channel 5 or like Channel 4 or even BBC
yeah, just a
2.
daytime movie, yeah.
It's not get anything bad in it. It's like, oh
No,
my
it
god,
don't.
what a peck in the cheek. Do you know what I mean? It's not going to be
Yeah,
like Bram Stoker's Dracula's never going to be on during the fucking day, that's for sure.
God no. Next on this list we have John Carradine or Carradine, depending on how you actually really want to pronounce it. 1944 to 1946. He only did it for 2 years. I do remember. I don't think it doesn't say that you have a movie on this one or a show on this one, but he did a very, very good job as Dracula. I do remember him playing as Dracula. Next on the list, it's an original classic. I was so pissed off on Rob Zombie's remake of it and remaster of it, but it's Al Lewis from the Munsters.
I haven't watched the new Monsters because I don't want
Oh,
to give my money
don't,
to Zombie, no thank you.
don't. We have both agreed that Rob Zombie does have his own visual depiction on shit, and when he makes his own standalone films, he does a halfway decent job, minus Lords of Salem.
Minus.
Yes,
You're being
minus Lords
nice
of Salem.
today. You're basically being incredibly
I'm
nice.
I'm being nice, but do not give your money to that man to watch the Munsters. I watched it because Munsters was probably one of my favorite shows growing up. So I was excited. I thought, yeah, I know. And then I watched it, and
Yeah.
then I was depressed, and I wanted to hang
Well,
myself after watching it.
from what? Rob Zombie's
Yes,
shoelaces?
yes.
It's like, you did this to me, Rob. It's time to pay.
But no, Al Lewis from the original Munsters did a
He
very
was brilliant, though.
he was brilliant. He did a great job as Dracula. And you got to think the Munsters was more of a it might
It
have
was
been a
fab.
little bit of a it might have been a little bit of an adult, but it had its
Moments,
comedy and family traits.
aspects, yeah. Like that did thing, but they don't really have that these days. It's either one or the other.
Yeah, yeah. Next on the list is David Niven, Old Dracula. 1974. I remember the movie. I don't remember it that well.
I remember the actor, but not the movie, which is weird.
Okay.
I've seen them
Next on
all.
the
I've
list
not
is
seen them all. Don't fucking come for me.
I have most of the time. Most of these movies I've seen, and yeah, Dracula is one of those old tales
Yeah,
that do become kind of repetitive over time.
but repetitive with a good attachment to the original story, fine.
Oh, absolutely,
Just
absolutely. Frank Langella, 1979's Dracula.
haven't seen
Again,
it.
I remember the actor, I remember the movie, but it's been a while. A lot of the older movies, yes, I will sit down and watch them constantly. Some of them I just don't rewatch all the time. So, like a lot of the older ones in here, I may have seen once, twice, maybe 3 times in passing. But to actually sit down and want to watch an older movie, not all the time.
There's other things to do.
Yeah, exactly. Hamilton, Love at First Bite, 1979. This one I have not seen.
I have, because I recognised the title, because I was just like, how have I heard this? But
Yeah,
again, it's
yeah,
going to be
yeah.
one of those watched with my gran, because my gran was hefty into horror. People wondered why I was a weirdo. It was because of her. So, we used to watch really terrible, bad daytime movies that usually, if they were horror related, they would have been, your old school Christopher Lee Dracula. That's why I've seen that so many times. Seen that probably
Yes.
far too many times, but it was just something that we really enjoyed. We'd always go for the weird, obscure one, over like the other daytime movies. You want some mystery. But again, see, for these movies to be out, these are what basically help other movies, Dracula movies, to become what they are. Although Rob Zombie, it's like we'll keep coming back to him. Rob Zombie doesn't obviously care about other people's takes on movies. He just goes his own way, and fair play to him, but he does ruin things.
Yeah, he does. Do you want to put him last, or do you want me to go into
We're just doing,
the
I'm just doing it in kind of order, but when because when we're talking about our favourite Draculas, I will be talking about Gary Oldman, for fuck's sake. Gary Oldman.
exactly?
So I'll be talking about him anyway, so you can just say, Bram. Obviously, have you seen it? Yes, of course. I fucking
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. So next on the list, one in order is the one, the only Gary fucking Oldman from Bram Stoker's Dracula in 1992. Yes, 2 years after I was born, but
Oh my goodness, I was 9.
is a
No,
is
10, yeah.
a classic. It is a classic through and through. It deserves Gary Oldman's performance in it by far.
Keanu Reeves, Winona Ryder.
Yeah, could not be beat, honestly. I mean, there's something about Gary Oldman. I don't know if it's his voice.
He's one of the sexiest Draculas ever.
Yeah, I don't know if it's his voice, his acting skill.
He's a proper thespian, so he can act. He can do
Yeah,
anything. He's a
absolutely.
fucking chameleon.
He is. I mean, he's also one of those people like you and I have discussed before about like Matthew Lillard.
He's a mood. He's just a mood.
Yes,
He's everything.
he's a mood, he's a genre,
He's just
character.
everything.
He's everything. I mean, because we discussed what Matthew Lillard, and there was another actor I think we discussed too.
There's a
Along the
few, but
same.
Matthew Lillard, when it comes to horror, he's just brilliant, and he should have
He
been in
is.
more stuff, in my honest opinion.
He
Need
is,
to
and
revive
actually
his career.
it was funny. One of my friends did send me a picture yesterday. They were watching 13 Ghosts. So
Love it.
I was like, I cracked up laughing because it was the scene that they sent me a picture on it was like, oh, now you want to be a believer. And you just seen the expression in Matthew Lillard's face. I cracked
He's
up
got the
laughing.
fucking. He's just got one of. See, when he's in Scream and stuff as well, it's going off on a tangent here because Matthew Lillard. Well, what can I say? He just has a facial expression where it's like he's the character. Him and the character are one, and he kind of like, you can imagine he still probably could be Stewie if he really wanted to, or
Oh,
the
absolutely.
character from 13 Ghosts come one to fuck. I would love to go to one of the horror cons in the States, especially because he ghosted quite a few of them.
He does. He
I would
does.
totally, I would literally be not worthy moment right in front of him and
Well,
not give a fuck.
I know you don't like planes and everything like that, but if you ever did get the courage to come up over here to a horror con, let me know and I will meet you there and we will go, guys. We will be
Go
circling
back
back.
to Dracula, yes,
Yes,
because
and
that's going
and
to be a
talking about Gary Oldman. There'll probably be two on here that we will talk about the most, and Gary Oldman's one of them, and then other one further down the list get to here shortly. But next on the list is Leslie Nielsen, Dracula Dead and Loving It.
fucking hilarious film. Those spoof
Yes,
films he did were brilliant, like Repossessed and everything like that. Oh, I miss Leslie Nielsen. He was
yes,
brilliant.
I know he was. Continuing down, we got Rudolph Martin from Buffy the Vampire Slayer 2000.
He was shit. He was a pretentious wank. I'm sorry, but he was.
That's from the movie, right?
No, that's from
That
a
is from
TV
the
show.
series? Okay, for some reason I couldn't remember if it was the movie or the TV series, but yes, I do remember from the series, and
Because
yes,
he makes
it was
Xander
horrible.
as
Yes, I do
Renfield.
remember now. Yeah.
And he was just pretentious as fuck, trying to make him look like kind of like an alt boy, and it's just like slap that bastard, man. Such a
Yeah.
pain in the ass. Even Spike was like ripping the piss out of him and stuff as well.
Spike. My favorite character, Spike.
Well, it's my favorite
Anyways.
character for other reasons, but hey.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Gets the little nether regions going on. Next on this list is Gerard Butler, Dracula, 2000 and 2001.
Jared Butler was a terrible Dracula. I'm sorry.
Absolutely
and no,
was.
And his hair, man, that is supposed to be real hair. It looked like a fucking wig. I can't. I've got to say
I'm
that.
sorry,
Dracula
Gerard
2000
Butler.
shit as Dracula, wasn't he?
Gerard Butler, yes.
Also,
I mean,
Danny Matheson's in that movie, so
yes.
I probably won't watch that again.
Gerard Butler is a character that needs to stick with his action roles.
But I think he's getting too old to do a lot of the action stuff now, so I think if he did things just like similar to like Olympus Has Fallen, that's fine. Don't fucking play Dracula again. Don't play someone undead again.
Yes.
No.
And I think they're doing another Den of Thieves movie as well, and I thought he did a very good job in that movie.
Was that all the movies he did during the pandemic? Because obviously he's used to a standard 11, so he literally has to sign up and do loads of movies so he can keep that standard 11 because he's old now. Is it those movies?
I think Den of Thieves was one of them. I can't remember though.
Sorry, Jared Butler. You're Scottish. You don't even sound Scottish anymore. So you've got so many things that I've really got a problem with you being Scottish myself. So no, your shite is Dracula. Don't ever fucking play an undead character. Moving on.
You heard it here first. Don't play fucking Dracula again, Mr. Butler.
But I'm coming for you.
Next on the list is Richard Roxburgh, Van Helsing.
No, didn't like him. I actually preferred his bitches better. They were like, I always wanted to cosplay though. I was just like,
I'm sorry. Out of the only thing that made that movie great was Hugh Jackman and Kate Beckinsale.
Well, that outfit, what can it does things to me.
Just Kate Beckinsale and some leather. Anyways.
Yes, I literally said the same thing in my head. You just had to say it out loud for us all.
Next is Dominic Purcell from Blade Trinity. I am sorry, fucking couldn't stand the movie at all.
I like leather trousers. I did like him in leather trousers, but that's just me. But them ripping the piss out of like goths, alternative people, and how we see Dracula and how we see vampires. That's not how we see Dracula and vampires.
No.
Closer to like emo and stuff like that. That was just like mighty offended. The best part of that film was Ryan Reynolds saying, "You caught juggling thunder tunt." So take that other one out.
Yeah, I after the BS and stuff from Wesley Snipes, I lost a lot of respect for any of his movies, and that kind of sucks because I thought in Blade Trinity, Ryan Reynolds and Jessica Biel did a hell of a good job as the helpers in the movie. Yeah, but Wesley Snipes, there's been so many issues with him making the movies. Especially the Blade movies. There was a bunch of times I was reading an article to where they had to put fake eyes on him, like during the scenes where he was supposed to be awake but laying down, but he kept his eyes closed. He didn't want to open his eyes. So they actually had to put fake eyes on him. And if you can remember the first Blade movie, it came out in the 90s. It's a CGI and stuff wasn't the greatest. So, and then in Blade Trinity, Ryan Reynolds actually came out and said that he never referred to him as Ryan Reynolds or Ryan or anything like that. He actually referred to him as that cracker. And also Wesley Snipes basically harassed.
Ryan Reynolds is really nice.
Yeah, the Wesley Snipes actually harassed the producers and the directors of Blade Trinity to put a sex scene in with Jessica Biel. He Yeah,
What?
he tried convincing them to do a sex scene with Jessica Biel in that movie. Failed horribly. There is a reason why. There's a lot of reasons. It's not Dominic Purcell himself. It's the movies all circulating
The
around.
surroundings, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. The kind of everything surrounding the movie that obviously. It's a shame because the first Blade film, I remember seeing that first scene with the rave.
Yes.
I was like, this is fucking
It,
awesome.
yeah, and before all the controversies happened, yes, the movies were flipping amazing. Like they were good, but after everything started to come to light, I lost all respect for them. Now, if it's on the TV, I'll watch it, but if it's
But-
like on Netflix or something and I'm scrolling through and I seen it, I'll pass it up.
Not with the same enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah,
not.
like watching it when it first came out, I had the greatest respect for that movie because it was a great movie. You know, Blade is
It's just martial art.
well, that and
Vampires.
Blade.
Music.
Blade alone, the character is a Marvel character.
I'm not a big Marvel fan,
Yes.
you know that, but I do watch the odd one that's obviously usually vampire or dark related. I will watch.
Yes, but yeah, Blade himself
more
is,
of a-
you know, you don't know, but he is a Marvel character in himself because he's technically the one that is supposed to go up and battle Morbius. So
Ooh. I did like Morbius.
I love Jared Leto.
I hate him. Sorry, I do.
It-
Sorry, I think I've talked
You
about
have,
it.
and it's there for Morbius. I loved Jared Leto. For 30 Seconds to Mars, I like the band. His
Yeah.
acting is not the
Sorry.
greatest, to say the least.
But when he commits to
Yes,
something, he commits
absolutely,
it.
he does.
That's what I'm saying. He's very good that way. He's got such good stamina and like he's just really, really Moxie type. He's just really good at what he does. But again, he's not good at everything.
Moving on.
Oh dear.
Next.
This gives me stuff to listen to when I'm editing it, by
Yeah,
the
I
way.
know.
I'm just sitting laughing to myself. Outburst.
Um,
Easter eggs for.
yes.
So who's next? Was it
Thomas
Kretschmann?
Yes, Thomas Kretschmann or Ketchman or whatever, however you pronounce his last name. Sorry if I butchered it.
Sorry.
But Dracula 3D in
Dracula
2012, and again, 2012 was a time when they were trying to bring 3D movies back.
Because it was everything. If it's 3D, then it's important.
It was.
And it was not. Not everything had to be 3D.
This was not the 1970s, 1980s when 3D was a big thing because it was pretty much the first of its kind. It's new. And now they wanted to try and bring it back, and it's like,
I've got a 3D TV in my bedroom. I think it's been used for 3D twice.
and
that's it.
Next on this list, and this is a BBC Dracula based in Victoria, London.
Oh,
Jonathan Myers.
Yes, he could tell me. He could be Dracula and tell me to literally go like throw myself in front of a bus. It's like Alexandra Daddario again. He was in. I didn't like him in the Tudors though. He was in the Tudors with Henry Cavill. But my mum had a thing for Jonathan Rhys-Myers, so she did. And that's it. Really put me off. So
Jonathan Rhys-Myers. He has very amazing eyes. I know it sounds weird for a guy to say that, but he does, and he also has a very sultry voice. I don't know what it is, and like even it is what it is when it comes to him. Like, anyways, next on the list, going down this list.
Yes, it's Luke now.
Yes, it's one of
Luke was robbed.
It is one of my favorite interpretations besides Gary Oldman of Dracula, and it is Luke from Dracula Untold.
Which was supposed to be
it's supposed to have a full universe. I don't know what is stopping them from creating it. I don't know if Luke Evans is having an issue with directorial problems or producer problems, or he just don't like the script.
It never hit well. It wasn't. It was not. It didn't hit well. People didn't like that version of. And I think it's weird because see, everybody I fucking speak to likes that version because it hit with Gary Oldman's Dracula when it showed you like he's like proper armor and stuff.
Yep, and
people liked it, and it was dark as fuck. And that's what again drew me and my husband to watch it because it was so dark. But people didn't like it, and I'm like, what fucking people?
So Gary Oldman and Luke Evans, in my opinion, unless we're going back to 1922 to the original, they are probably the best interpretations of Dracula that have been out there. We'll get into more of that after we small little 3 other characters.
I was going to ask you, Eddie Murphy, was he just a vampire in Brooklyn? No Dracula?
I think he was just a vampire. I don't think he was Dracula.
Right. I was just like, I didn't miss
Yes.
one, did I? Glad.
Again,
Can
like I said,
clarify
we
that.
will discuss, Gary Oldman and Luke Evans once we're done with this list. And we do have a small list for the TV portrayals of Dracula. We'll get into that after our discussion of Luke Evans and Gary Oldman. Continuing this last three characters, Christian Camargo from Penny Dreadful.
Didn't like him, sorry, but I didn't.
I didn't either.
Like,
He seemed very bland as Dracula. I don't know if it was. Yeah.
Because Penny Dreadful was a really good show.
Yeah, I don't know if it was because it just wasn't a role that fit him, or if it was just how the
Tried too hard?
tried too hard, or if it was just how the script was written. But he did not do a good trail of Dracula for the Penny Dreadful series, which was kind of depressing a little bit. I didn't really get into Penny Dreadful, but I didn't think it was horrible.
Not for Eva Green? Really?
Well, I mean,
you could just put it on mute and just watch her.
It's Eva Green,
and
so
Josh
yeah,
Hartnett.
but no, well, Josh Hartnett. I'm sorry, I'd go gay for Josh Hartnett.
Not for Gary Oldman,
Especially
or Jonathan. Jonathan.
Gary Oldman could have me any which way from Sunday. I would just want Jonathan Rhys Meyers to serenade me all day long. He wouldn't have to touch me. I just want to hear that voice. Yes, I just want to hear that voice. He can serenade me. No, I didn't get into Penny Dreadful, and like I said, I didn't think it was a horrible. I just for some reason I couldn't get into it. I don't know why. Next on the list is Klaus Bang. I have seen this. I think you said you haven't seen it yet.
It's just because Netflix do it, I just automatically think it's going to be shite.
Okay, yeah. So I have seen it. This is the Netflix.
Are you agreeing with me?
Well, I mean, Netflix has not exactly had a great track record for a lot of movies, but they've had amazing track records for a lot of series. So it's kind of a toss-up. So yeah, I can agree with you. I have seen it. I actually thoroughly did enjoy the series. I think it was only 4 episodes. They were all an hour long, 2 hours long, hour and a half, something like that. I honestly thought it was a very well thought out show. I thought that they did it kind of was a little bit different in a way, but I thought it was very well stuck to a script of Dracula. So I thought it was good. Again, it is 4 episodes. If you ever do get a chance to watch it, we can discuss it on a later episode of something else. So yeah, if you do ever get a chance to watch those 4 episodes, we can discuss it later, or even if we play a game together, we can just discuss it then. It doesn't have to be on the podcast. But I'm sure anybody who does listen to our podcast, if you guys have seen the Netflix 4-part series of Dracula, put in the comments what you guys thought about it. Let us know and kind of give. Like him as Dracula? Yeah, let us know if you liked him as Dracula. Let us. Well, not let us, because I have seen it. Let Darcy know whether it's something for her to watch or not. If the majority of you guys think it isn't something, tell her. Don't force her to watch it. I am her podcast co-host. I'm her podcast co-host. I'm going to force her to watch it eventually, whether she likes it or not. No. So it's not going to happen, man. No. So you
can try, but you'll be so unsuccessful, and I will be the one laughing. So you can try.
But next time, I'm going to message your husband.
That's not going to work. Again, he knows that once I say no, that's it. It's just like, nope, not doing it. Nope.
But next on this list is going to be Javier Bolet from The Last Voyage of Demeter. I have not seen this movie. Darcy has. So the very last 2 it is. So she can give you a little more interpretation on it and take it from here.
So The Last Voyage of Demeter. First of all, the Demeter ship. There might be a ship called Demeter, but in this instance, when they're talking about Vlad Dracul, he's never came to the UK. And that's just obviously all made up, like as the Dracula character. The Last Voyage of Demeter basically is Dracula coming over to the UK. And he comes over on this ship. And like I said earlier, people see the dragon. And it's like, it's a symbol that every time you see it, shit happens. So get the shit out of Dodge, because it's not a positive outcome whatsoever. They go on a journey, basically, on a ship, a voyage, if you will. Yes, and then shit starts happening on the ship. Shit is happening on the ship, and it's like obviously the livestock starts to go missing and be slaughtered and things like that. They don't know obviously what they're carrying. You think they would want to know what's on their fucking ship, to be honest. No matter how much money it is, if it's a high risk, there's obviously something that it shouldn't be there. So people start to get turned as well, but they turn differently. Again, it's just more about you find out that he travels with a snack like a Happy Meal, and everybody's unsure about, if she's one as well. There's a few very, very dramatic, and there's an incredibly sad basically victim in it, and it kind of hit home being a parent. That's all I'm saying about that. But overall, it shows you how Dracula is in his animal form, which people forget, that he can turn into an animal, a bat type thing. And when he's at his weakest, he seems to be like a bat/wolf type thing. You see it in Bram Stoker's Dracula with Gary Oldman. He kind of reverts back to like a wolf or a bat, basically, to before he's actually in his full Gary Oldman looking like he is. You don't really see this vampire though in the Demeter till the end, because you think that they may have got him, but obviously they weren't going to do that. They've ended it, like I said to you, like they're going to have a sequel. But if it's a continuation of the story and not a stupid ass sequel, if they're going to continue it from they're in a bar and then he's got his cane, the infamous cane and top hatted basically Dracula, if they continue it from where, he's sitting at the bar, but he's not even looking at people, he's looking at reflection, he's using everything around him the way Dracula would. So it's like they kind of have went to, he's kept away from mirrors and all that carry on. Old school lore of a vampire, including with Dracula, where he wouldn't look in a mirror because, like in Bram Stoker, you see his true face. So they kind of have followed a lot more of your Bram Stoker type lore. Would I say watch The Last Voyage of Demeter? And I'd say yes, it was very good. And I felt like it went in really quickly, which again shows that it's a good story. So I think you should watch it. Everyone.
I do plan on watching it. I just haven't watched it yet. And to be quite honest, I was actually going to watch it last night, but I ended up falling asleep. I
You
wasn't
can
fully.
watch it today.
I probably may not. Anyways.
It's like, you won't, will you? What the fuck?
So, that for the on-screen Dracula is our list. But like I said, guys, we are going to get into a little bit of a conversation of Gary Oldman and Luke Evans for their portrayals of Dracula, because in our opinions, they have been the best for
Portrayals.
multiple reasons. Acting styles. Yes, Gary Oldman and Luke Evans different in acting styles, but they have the same mindset. They are very persistent and
They're
constant.
British, what do you expect?
That
British
too,
actors
yes.
are different from American actors. They know their lines. They don't need someone in their ear telling them their lines because they're proper face.
Yes.
They know their job.
Yeah. Obviously, we're gonna start off good old Gary Oldman. So Bram Stoker's Dracula. It's a classic at this point in time. It is
Old enough to be a classic. It was that.
Yeah, it's also for a lot of people, it's a cult classic as well. I guess you could call it that. His acting style throughout the movie was phenomenal. I'm probably going to talk in circles, so I'll let you take it over from here for a little bit. But her and I both can agree, Gary Oldman, phenomenal. There's not really, I mean, yeah, we can go. We're definitely going to talk about
What's your favorite scene in Dracula? Would you say overall?
God.
Sorry, I'm that person. You know I am. I'm thorough. Calm yourself.
My favorite scene. You're gonna have to honestly give me a second to think about it, because
Questionable sex scene
well, the sex scenes are
as
always
well.
great, but
Especially when it's part wolf.
yes.
Don't look at me.
Give me yours. Give me a second, because like I said, the movie all around was great. So
I love it where he just turns around to Harker and says, "Listen to them, the children of the night." I love that bit. Absolutely love it. He's just like, listen to my children making noise and all that. Oh, he's just brilliant. I love his outfits because he's different. Like when he's in his castle, he's totally different. Although he's like that is a toxic relationship right there, Dracula and Harker. That is toxic as fuck. Then you've got, it's a weird manship, I would say, between, I know that's the weirdest way to put it, but he comes across as quite queer when he's, you know, got his hair like an old lady who's had a blue ring. You know, that hairstyle. When he's like that, he's very flamboyant. He gives me Elton John vibes, so he does. Don't ask me why. Maybe because of how Elton John looked in the 70s and 80s, maybe.
Yeah.
Very flamboyant. And his top hat, and see the glasses he wears. My husband loves the glasses because they've got no like stems on them, no legs, and they just like sit. Those are cool glasses. And how he just says "see me" and stuff. See like all these like wee commands he does, and then Mina turns around and sees him. That kind of connection, you know, this is the point where she doesn't know who she's a kindred spirit of his, and she doesn't know at this point. This is what I like about it. It's like, see me, and then she turns around and he sees her. And again, he walks about in the daylight. That's what I wrote in the notes. It was an overcast day. So again, that was another thing in movies when it was like they say you can't go outside and it's the fuck out. You can go outside in the overcast, and Dracula can control the parts of the weather, especially if it is a cloudy day. He could probably make it more cloudier or more dark so he can actually get about. So he does walk about during the day. It's just direct sunlight that he has a problem with. And obviously other vampires have problems with direct sunlight because they're not Dracula. Do you agree?
I definitely do agree. I always thought it was interesting because a lot of people don't realize that, you know, one, the movie did stick very well to the book, and two, Dracula's performance for his powers throughout the span, and we will get into his powers here shortly. The span throughout all his movies, the one that always was the best was the fact that he could basically control Overcast.
Yep. He can mimic
Yep.
mist and stuff as well. He could use it to his advantage,
Yes.
especially if he didn't want to be seen, but he wanted to move around. So that is again another that is from the books as well.
Yep. So
Would you mimic to go about without getting noticed?
yes.
I would.
So like I said, I needed a quick minute to think. So many scenes in Bram Stoker's Dracula that are absolutely amazing. The movie in itself, so I had to actually go through my whole mental capacity to just kind of wean out what I would consider to be my best and favorite scene. My favorite scene would be the rat. So
Okay.
it's basically where think he makes her drink his blood, and then you got the police, you got the officers and everything that come in, and he ends up going into his full bat form and makes the cross get set on fire, because that was a great interpretation that the cross is the one thing that does not affect Dracula himself. It may affect other vampires. Dracula himself, it does not bother, because in old folklore of Dracula, I don't know if you know this, but he actually was a very religious man.
Yes, they would have been because they were in Eastern Europe and stuff. That was very religious, and it still is to this day.
All the candles get blown out in the room, and then when they come back and they get a candle lit again, it's just nothing but a wall of rats that end up falling down. I thought that by far, again, that doesn't take away from any other part of the movie, because the movie in itself is amazing, but that is by far probably one of my favorite scenes, due to the fact of it.
What do you think of the death scenes though when they were killing like Lucy and stuff? They were very bloody and very you
Very
just like
and I was going to touch a little bit on that too. Bram Stoker's Dracula, for one, the time that it came out and everything like that.
1800s.
Yeah, well, that and 1992 for the movie.
Yep, they were still stuck in the 1890s though. Come on, look at
Yes.
the
Um, the scenes throughout that movie, even today, if I'm not really paying attention to the movie, and I might get a little bit of a jump scare, to be honest. I honestly thought that interpretation of Dracula was probably one of the scoriest and goriest renditions. The scariest, not scoriest. I just figured I'd throw that out there as a scoriest, though. But the scariest rendition, as well as the scariest rendition, for one, the time that the movie did come out, because it did come out in 1992. back in 90s, CGI wasn't the greatest.
But it was dark though.
It was for the
For
time
that
that it
time,
came
there's
out. Yeah.
because you had a couple of dark kind of monster movies that came out round about that time like between 1990 and 1996. There was a few
Yes.
movies that came out like that, and they didn't need big ass fucking
No.
CGI shit.
No, they
The
didn't.
stories were good enough.
And it's actually kind of funny, because I was just for some reason thinking about it and off on a little tangent again, because the universe of
We always go
Dracula.
off on a tangent.
I know we do, but the universe of Dracula, it always did, have Dracula, werewolves, stuff like that, throughout all the episodes that don't include the supernatural, obviously, but all the episodes of our podcast, there is one character from the original, like, OG cast back in the day, especially for the supernatural, that we have not brought up, and that is Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, well, now that I brought that up, I'm sure somewhere down in our future episodes we will probably bring up Swamp Thing eventually, but it's just funny because Swamp Thing was such an underrated movie. No, that scene for Bram Stoker's Dracula, it just showed the versatility of what Dracula himself could do. Seduced a woman, fed her blood, fed her his blood, set a cross on fire because it does not bother him.
Control things.
Yeah, control things. Showed his true form,
Mm-hmm.
and then mimicked and copied the visual interpretation of another animal, which is a rat. So,
Yep.
and a lot of people, I've actually gotten to quite a few arguments with people about why in that movie Dracula could impersonate a rat. Well, there's multiple reasons. One, because he is Dracula. Two, because
I never said he couldn't though.
Well, yeah, but two, how many people consider bats rats that can fly?
Yes.
So in my opinion, bats are just evolved version of rats. So if that's actually the case, that bats are just further evolutions of rats, then it would only make sense that he could turn himself into rats. But at the same time, I mean, that whole scene, it was probably a good 2-3 minute scene.
And very good.
Yeah, it just showed the whole versatility of what he could do.
With what little he had.
Yeah, with what little he had, but with the powers that he had too. I mean,
Yeah.
We could go back to Nosferatu. They didn't really show much of what he could do with his powers. They didn't show, so they didn't show, the multitude of extravagant powers. One, granted, it came out in 1922, but two, it was the single first version and on-screen interpretation of a Dracula. So they kind of just worked around it. So anything else you want to add about Mr. Gary Oldman?
I have got into arguments with people who don't think it's a good movie and know nothing about it, and they're supposed to be. This person was actually a director, and he was writing a script, and he said that he would never adapt Dracula because it's one of the worst stories and one of the worst depictions of a vampire, and I almost threw a cup at him in the middle of a coffee shop.
I mean,
and my husband didn't. That guy said that shitty thing about the Dracula. My husband didn't stop me from wanting to hit the man, put it that way, because he felt the exact same way, because he's been a fucking obnoxious prick, because he was sitting there with his twirly moustache and his fucking coffee and doing nothing else. I was just like, fuck off. He couldn't give me any good reasons why, just this stupid pompous shit he was coming out with spouting. I was just like, you have never read the book, you have obviously know nothing. I was like, it's people like you, that's why like movies don't get made.
Yeah.
I was like, because of people like you. But no, I love Bram Stoker's Dracula, and you love it too. But compared to Luke Evans one, again, like I said, they touch on it. Like when you see Gary Oldman, like if you've not seen Bram Stoker's Dracula, it does kind of jump all over the place when you actually think about it. You
It
see
does.
him and he's kind of, what would you call it? Where he's Elton John phase, you know, where he's
Yeah.
stoating about his mansion and he looks like an old drag queen. You've got him there, and then you see him in his top hat outside, looking hot as fuck, and every women would literally throw themselves at him, probably, and probably some men as well. It's the Victorian times, or probably
Yes.
with some people like that too. And then you see him in his transformation, and then you see him on the battlefield in his armor. Now you see that with Luke Evans in Dracula Untold. He's in the same armor, but it kind of looks like the muscles of a body when you take the skin off.
Yes.
You know, that kind of fibers, because they kind of did it. I'm sure it was in Blade Trinity as well when they were showing you things. They kind of like that's something that's been fluid in with the kind of story of his, the way he goes to battle. Basically, he doesn't play any games. He goes to win, basically, and maim, because he's trying to, you know, be a fierce leader. So I like that, how that's, you know, in many movies, and a
Yes.
similarity in the movies with the armor,
Yep.
which I'll say.
Absolutely.
But it just makes me sad that it never got a sequel or a universe, because I'd love to have seen what they done
Yeah. So guys,
with Luke Evans.
obviously we both love Bram Stoker's Dracula. We loved Gary Oldman's
And that
interpretation
was
of Dracula.
always gonna be number one.
Um,
It was always going to be number one, though, wasn't it?
yes, it was. Next we're going to touch on Luke Evans a little bit. It's probably not going to be near as long as Gary, but we are going to touch a little bit on it. But if you guys, you know, have any comments about Bram Stoker's Dracula, yeah, put them in the comments. If they're negative, we don't care about them.
I'll still answer them, just so if that annoys you, I will still answer your comment.
Yeah,
Because a
but
comment's a comment.
no, we do respect all comments. We're not completely ignorant, but there are some stuff that we don't want to touch on, especially with stuff that we're very passionate about, but we will still respect it. So no, the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever you guys think about Gary Oldman's performance as Dracula, please let us know what you guys think in the comments. But next we're going to talk about Luke Evans. He is obviously, Gary Oldman was number one. Luke Evans does come in second, in my opinion. Again, let us know what you guys think about it too. But get into,
If you haven't seen it, watch it
yes, if you guys haven't seen
as well.
Dracula Untold, I do believe for the time being, I think October 31st is the last day it's going to be on Netflix here in the US.
I don't know if it's on the UK Netflix, because I don't have Netflix. So.
Luke Evans, in my opinion, played a very good part. Obviously, somewhat the same, you know, he wants to be a good leader, as Gary Oldman did, you know, in Bram Stoker's, but he did want to be a good leader. It took a completely different turn, but still stuck to the source material, because spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen Dracula Untold, this does fully, I know a lot of the Dracula movies does, but this actually fully shows him as Vladimir the Impaler. This actually gives the best interpretation of it, in my opinion.
The man,
Yeah,
basically.
who the man was before he became Dracula. And in the movie Dracula Untold, I do believe it. Luke Evans does say he is Dracula, the son of the dragon, I think it was, or I think at the very end when everything happened, I think he did say the son of the devil.
Well, that's what it kind of translates
Yes.
to, apparently. So.
Basically, again, if you guys haven't seen it, it basically goes around Vladimir the Impaler, who grew up fighting alongside the Turks, and now he broke away, had his castle, his own people. He was trying to be the best lord that he could be, best leader, best person he could be. He had a wife, Mina, a son, everything like, and basically what ends up happening
I'm
throughout
trying
the,
to protect these people.
yeah, he basically wanted to do nothing but protect. And basically what ends up happening is he turns around, betrays the Turks because they required 1,000 boys to join the Turkish army, and he refused in the most epic fucking way. in my opinion. He just goes on a slaughter spree to the scouts to bring his own son. And then basically that was a message of war to the army, and he ends up going to look for power to help win the war. And that's how he came to be. Now, he is considered to be Dracula, but let's face it, the original vampire was in Broken Tooth Mountain. So, in other words, I guess you could say that might be the original Dracula. But he goes this power from the original vampire that is trapped in Broken Tooth Mountain, and everything comes to light from there. He has now super hearing. He can hear absolutely everything. He basically has his own built-in heartbeat sensor and infrared sensor to where he can see basically everything around him.
Predator.
Yes. In this version, I'm still a little confused, to be 110% honest with you, because spoilers at the end of the movie, that priest comes in with a cross. But I don't think it was the cross that was actually the issue. I think it was the fact that the cross was actually silver.
Yeah, because silver is a weakness.
Silver is, his weakness in this movie. But it still portrays on the fact that his bat form is completely different. He actually just breaks up into a bunch of different small bats, normal sized bats, which in my opinion is awesome.
It's cool because it's always showed as like a, see, like the DVD, I think it was, or the Blu-ray, it was kind of like the bats coming out, with the menu and things like that. They kind of, that's what they did, the animation, which was pretty cool.
Again, he's got super hearing, super sight, super speed, strength of 100 men, can heal. Basically, your typical Dracula, typical vampire. But his biggest thing and weakness is silver, and the sunlight, obviously, or being stabbed in the heart. Typical to a vampire, typical to Dracula. But all he really wanted to do was protect his people. The original vampire told him he has 3 days. His blood will be out of his system. He will revert back to being a human. Or if he were to drink blood, the original vampire that's trapped in the mountain will be set free, and then and then also Luke Evans will live an eternal life as the monster that was created to protect his own people. And I thought that was an interesting take on it too, to be able to get a taste of the power, but also have the willpower to ignore it for 3 days
and stop.
Yeah, to turn back into himself. So I thought that was actually a pretty interesting take on it. Let's give him 3 days to decide, and then after that, if he doesn't, great. If he does, start sucking blood. If you guys haven't seen it, he does, obviously, he is called Dracula. He does eventually give in. It is basically
I thought it was a good way of aligning previous stories and works along with the original lore and mythical, basically, history surrounding Dracula for a 21st century movie, and taking, bits from, the Gary Oldman Dracula as well, like I said, and it's someone who's really thought about it, someone who really did have a passion for it, and wasn't just a random story they were creating from random shit and copying or going off on a tangent or whatever. It was fluid and concise and everything like that. And I'm just still really upset that the fact that Luke Evans never got his.
I definitely agree, because they definitely finished the movie in a true Dracula style. They finished it. So again, for you guys, if you haven't seen it, the reason why he still ended up becoming to be is because the army ends up killing his wife, and before she dies, she basically makes him drink her blood. He becomes eternal. He becomes long lasting, and then again, true Dracula style. Yeah, it shows Luke Evans talking to a girl that is basically a reincarnation of Mina.
which is what they do in Bram Stoker's original Dracula.
Yep, and then they start walking off, and then in tow is the original the original vampire that was able to be freed from the mountain because Luke Evans drank the blood. And the very end, the very last sentence of the thing is, "It's game on," and that is very true to a lot of Dracula movies. And the fact that it left it open for a sequel, which a lot of movies do, especially Dracula movies, when they do something like that, Luke Evans was completely robbed of a universe, because I would have loved to seen the fight ensue between Luke Evans, the original vampire that was trapped in the mountain.
Yep, and
Yeah.
and also if it would have went into the kind of backstory of the vampire and the mountain as well, because they'd probably do that if they were going to do an origin story on him. It would be an origin story on him, and then maybe do a battle and show why he ended up there.
Yep, and
type thing. That's what I was looking forward to seeing the most.
And to be quite honest, I would have enjoyed watching it, even though it would have been a prequel. And we had a podcast episode last week that we did that we discussed that we absolutely hate them.
Yeah.
But
it's the different though if it's a story, the continuation to actually build up an actual universe, not just a sequel for the fucking sake of it.
Exactly. So
there's a time and place.
Anything else you want to touch on about Luke Evans?
I think we covered our love for that man.
So again, Luke Evans, Gary Oldman, our two favorite portrayals of Dracula.
The best portrayal.
Let us know what you guys think about those two.
Exactly.
Or any of the other lists that we did. If you liked any of them, if you didn't like any of them, if you have a strong hate for any of them, or if you absolutely just...
There's one missing.
Huh?
There is one missing.
We're not going to talk about Nicolas Cage. We're going to ignore that.
Nicolas Cage. I like that film. It's funny and bloody. It's so violent for a movie that's supposed to be.
I'm going to completely
comedic.
Ignore Nicolas Cage and just he in my opinion is Gerard Butler. Just ignore it. Don't do it again. I'm sorry.
Just ignore Gerard Butler like he.
No, don't do that, because he does have some good movies. Just ignore him as Dracula. Wipe that from your memory. Don't even acknowledge that we even said that he played.
That was an early film, though. That was an early movie in his career, thankfully. Things did.
Or if you guys, again, seduced by Jonathan Rhys-Meyers' voice, just let us know what you. Yes.
Watch the trailers.
Just let us know what you guys thought about our choices of who we thought and think are the two best interpretations of Dracula. And if you guys can honestly think about it, they are from two completely different time periods. And
who would you like to play Dracula though, if you could? Obviously not Nicolas Cage, apparently.
Keep him just out of the memory. Or somebody who I would love to see play Dracula.
A woman, perhaps.
I would definitely.
Remember, I found out there actually has been a female taking Dracula, but it was one of those dead movies. It's like some girl on girls. Who doesn't know that? But hey. You were thinking it. I just said what you were thinking. How's that bad?
A female playing Dracula.
You know who
I do know who you want.
You can say it.
Well, you can say it. I mean, it's your female. Eva Green. And to be quite honest,
Eva Green.
I was sitting here thinking of all the female actresses
She would be brilliant.
that I think could play Dracula as a female. I only had one other person in mind, but at the same time, it'd be Alexandria Daddario, because she does have that very seductive look to her that would be perfect for a Dracula role. But the thing is I have yet to see her in an actual horror movie. I know she has been, but I haven't seen her kind of play like the main horror villain to see how she would do as a main horror villain.
I think she'd be great as Medusa.
Those eyes, absolutely.
Because she was in Percy Jackson. She could make me walk in front of a bus.
I'd get pushed in front of a bus.
Anyways, I think Eva I think Ava Green would be amazing because when you see her in Miss Peregrine as well, it's a very, very dark
Yes.
children's book that they made into a movie, or two movies, and she was brilliant in that. And also when she was in Penny Dreadful, I think she would be an amazing female Dracula. She's just got this look about her, and I think it's just because she's kind of quite. It's the pale skin, opaque skin. I've got similar skin to Eva Green as well, where it's very, very pale, very
Yes.
opaque. She's got just this look about her where you could easily see her stoating about in like Dracula, where do you know what I mean? She could pull it off in real life, not just on screen. So definitely, and I would really like to see Johnny Depp play like the love interest, just because he can be like really gothic-y
I
as
could
well. And it's just weird if he was playing like a male
I could
version of
definitely
Nina.
see that.
He could be William, she could be Dracula, and they could literally just have a love story, like a Morticia Gomez type love story,
Yes.
powerful. Not that I've thought about it, I have,
You have.
but
It's
still.
okay. So our next list is they're going to be smaller roles. We probably touched too much on them.
It's just so we could tell you, yes, we're aware that there's
Yes.
been TV shows and TV
Absolutely.
versions of Dracula. We're just letting you know. Maybe you didn't know that Morgan Freeman played Dracula from 1971
I'm
to
pretty sure
1977.
there's
That
not a
was just
lot
a
of
TV
people
show.
that knew he
It was
did
just
play Dracula. And just sitting there thinking Morgan Freeman as
Morgan
I do
Freeman.
remember watching part of that series. I never finished it. Just seeing him in a completely different and his voice being the same that it is, it's like Dracula. No, he just needs to stick to playing God.
Yeah, again, I'd probably do something if he asked me to, even as God or Dracula. I don't know. She's got a voice.
Yes,
It's the
voice.
voice. Can't help it.
Next on this list is Jack Palance from Bram Stoker's Dracula 1904. Yeah, I don't have much to say. I don't have much to honestly say about that one because it's Bram Stoker's Dracula in 1974, and we've already done a Bram Stoker's Dracula who we've already.
But there's been plenty on like Broadway and stuff as well, and things like that, including Bram Stoker himself wrote a fucking play as well.
I mean that is true.
Shite.
Next on this list is Klaus Kinski, Nosferatu, 1979. Yeah.
Was still not on yet.
Yeah, and it literally, he is a very eccentric actor, and yes, he is German. So, I mean, Klaus, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, it's like you can kind of tell you've got a German relative there. When you've got a name like that, it's a family name.
It is a very, very strong family name. Next on this list is from the Monster Squad, Duncan Reger, 1987. God, 1987. I wasn't
even born yet. I was.
But I just can't believe it's been that long since.
You're acting like you're depressed about that.
I am.
You're literally depressed sounding that you weren't born in 1987.
Paul Naschy. Count Dracula's Great Love, 1973. I do remember seeing this on Naschy.
The cover is
the cover.
Can I see what I wrote in brackets?
Yes, cover. Oh, kinky. I like kinky. Chains and fire. Nummy.
Exactly, and that was the 70s.
Yeah, I mean, chains in the 70s, yeah. Kinky.
Yeah, key parties and stuff.
And I definitely forgot that Peter Fonda did play Dracula and Van. That's who's next on our list by any chance.
I forgot Rutger Hauer played Dracula. I forgot
Yes.
Rutger Hauer. I got a fright when I forgot
Dracula 3. Yep. Then we got Louis Jourdan, 1977. Stefan Selenu.
No idea how yours was. Yes. Vlad the Impaler, The True Life of Dracula.
Yes. The True Life of
Juan.
It's almost like Sharon.
Yeah. Dracula, a chamber musical. A chamber means toilet, does it not? A toilet musical?
Well, they must have known it was going to be a shit musical. The puns.
Exactly.
The puns are there.
Yes, exactly. The puns.
Xander Vorkov, Dracula versus Frankenstein.
Again, would love to have seen that kind of kind of mashup like that.
Yes, absolutely.
Wouldn't you?
And I love your brackets for the next one. Jamie Gillis playing Dracula sucks, 1978. Not pornographic like the one he's usually famous for. Yeah, I could definitely agree.
If people aren't aware that Guy's actually a pornographic, well, a porn director who did Dracula. He actually was an actor, but apparently he directs porn now. So at least he's on to bigger and
That's
better
what
things.
he probably thinks.
Who knows?
Sudhir Sukumaran.
Yeah.
It's a Malaysian film of Dracula. Never seen it. I
Neither, but I
know.
put it in there
And then we
just
got
in case. You
Sahin
never
Ermark.
know.
Earmark. The Crypt of Count Dracula. Don't know much about that one either. I've never seen it.
Yeah, in 2000.
Yeah, we already
Then
covered him.
Gahua.
Yeah, he was brilliant.
He was brilliant. So sad
Then
about him.
Udo Kier, Bloodford Dracula.
Here.
Judd Hirsch, The Halloween That Almost Wasn't. I do remember watching that.
And you tell me that I've not watched this. You watch
I know.
the most obscure shit ever.
Nothing wrong with it. Denholm Elliott.
Just say you do though.
Dracula. Too many movies out there that just called Dracula.
Apparently it's because of, do you know what it's actually supposedly about? See, because a lot of them say Dracula and then it's like Blood for Dracula or Dracula and then, an actual secondary, like fucking other name for the movie. Remember we talked about it, we spoke about it about Halloween. Well, apparently to get an Oscar and stuff, it has to just be, or like an award, it has to be just Dracula. So lots of people dropped like big titles just so they had Dracula, so it would be Dracula that won it, not Dracula. That's apparently a lot of people were trying to do, but again, I doubt Dracula's winning an Oscar. I'm sorry, but the movies that win awards are never good. I'm sorry, but majority of them are not. So where do we get to? Denholm Elliott. So there's Ron Moss Hart Morbid Desires, which sounds like one of those erotic thrillers that you'd get called Muffy the Vampire Slayer, Lord of the G-Strings type movies, but I don't think it is. I think it actually is a movie. There's Ahmed Adeweya Fangs, Andrew Brynarski, Dracula's Guest in 2008, Manoj Kayan or Gian Dracula. It's again a Malaysian movie. You've left me with all the tongue twister names, you dick. Taduski Lomiki? What the fuck? I'm sorry, mister with the really weird name. I've not even put his name, what movie he was in, so I probably got tired because of the name. Ferdinand Main, The Vampire Happening, 1971. Dennis Price, he was Frankenstein in Dracula versus Frankenstein. So I put that in because I spoke about the other one. There's a Thief Captain, Dracula. Again, it's from Istanbul, and that's 1953. The female Dracula was called Darian Kane, and it was Lust for Dracula. And again, that's the name that you would probably call an erotic thriller, which it was because they had Mina and her, and that's the only two people they had listed on IMDb. So I don't think it was there for story, put it that way, or gore or anything. I think it was just mainly about two women and Dracula was a woman. So no story and no very good plot there. Mitch Powell, Saint Dracula, 3D, another 3D, 2012. Paul Logan, a different Paul Logan, The Way of the Vampire, where he played Dracula. That is us with that. Like I said, Eva Green, I said, I feel like she would be a great storyteller. Her voice, the narration, she would also have she has a very dark, gothic, mysterious look. As Miss Perrine, so I forgot there is a lot of narration in Dracula. Again, you get it with Keanu Reeves' character. He talks about his diary out loud, like his journal. Dracula talks again in narration, talking about his past life. And I think Luke Evans might have done it as well. But in most of the kind of Dracula movies, monster-like movies, they do a narration with the main characters usually. And Eva Green, I think, would be amazing. Just her foretelling Dracula, even if she wasn't the female Dracula or she played something in the lore of Dracula type thing, that would still be good, in my honesty. And we're going on to Dracula's powers, old school versus new school. We already spoke about his mimic
Yes, and
of
Luke Evans did a
animals
good
and
portrayal
also
of
the weather.
that as well.
And then we get eternal life as well. Strength, superhuman again. When you anger him, all hell breaks loose. It's, again, humanity. His humanity technically would still stop that, even though he's been a vampire for longer than he's actually been human. Mind reading, he does that as well, and he also, that could be like a parlor trick, as they call it, because remember they do that about psychics and stuff, how you think they're mind reading but they're actually
Yes.
not. They're just, they're used to reading people. Can also get you to do things like suggestibility, ability to glamour. That's probably the proper term for it. To be love interest or woman that he wants to get familiar with, and also if he wants a familiar in the daylight and things like that, he would use the ability of
Yes.
kind of like hypnosis and the way he spoke to be suggestible to these people. Because again, they always have a familiar. Even though technically a familiar is for protection, the familiar for Dracula was more someone going out and doing things for him that he couldn't do. Because again, it was like they were. He got very, very sick. So he did, remember, in Dracula. So it was just like because he could become a vampire, but he doesn't become a vampire. He just becomes his slave because he's trying to get Mina. I said here, hypnosis, able to make their victims and their human familiars do their bidding, usually on the premise they are turned, which is always just a trick. Why turn someone and give them a burden? Yes, eternal life, but eternal guilt and depression of being alone. Weaknesses. We said weak to sunlight and religious artifacts such as holy water and crucifixes, but again, it's not a crucifix. If it's Dracula, it's if it was a silver crucifix, isn't it? Fire, silver, and garlic. Unable to cross the threshold of a home without an invitation from the owner. And daylight makes you weak. Like I said, you see him in Victorian London and Bram Stoker, and he's completely covered and it's overcast, so he can go outside, but only if he is able to, and he can control basically the surroundings around him.
Or even, I guess, didn't even have him really show the strength of his powers with that was Blade Trinity. Because he was able, they considered him a daywalker, the original daywalker. He could walk in the sunlight.
Yeah, you see him walking in the daylight in
Yep.
LA of all places. It's like very, very sunny. So you would burst into flames. So again, that was a wee bit different there again. But then Dominic Purcell though, he's got a voice though. I remember him from John Doe, and he's got this voice. And like when he's talking about when he is Dracula in Blade Trinity,
Yes.
he is very kind of a warrior, like a soldier the way he talks. Like talking about this is what is with this world, like mocking me. I am not a mockery. I am Dracula. What the fuck's going on? And that's
Yeah.
it. Really annoyed him, wasn't it? That the fact that Dracula was he thought that they were ripping the piss, but actually
Yeah.
it wasn't. You were literally vampires
Just
loved
for that
by the
interpretation back
alternative
when
community.
Purcell did it, because if you think about it, he was this big, beefed up, muscular guy. If you think about it, and this is just my opinion though, if this was now and they decided to do it, I think there's one character or one
Okay.
actor that actually be very good at playing that part as what Purcell did back in 2000. No, I honestly feel like Batista would play a good part for that, because Batista is the big warrior, beefy, muscled up guy. I think he would have done a very good job. Yeah.
Batista though, because he'd have to play like with a love interest, because obviously they'd have to bring, and it would be nice to see him like that, even though he has done so many different roles and he's shown so many different sides of himself. I'd like to see him, if they do a Dracula, for him to do that.
And I think he's a very good actor. Yeah, that's why he spends millions of dollars to go to acting classes so he can become a better actor. So the last few things that we have is first fact we've kind of already covered a little bit, and that is Dracula never visited Transylvania. We did cover that a little bit already. We covered the Icelandic translation too.
Yes, that was
I do.
funny.
That
I
is
put that in
that's
for you
absolutely
because you
great.
like the most randomest
I mean,
facts about
the
stuff.
next couple on here was definitely yes, I did enjoy that. And the next couple on here too is definitely random too. You know, Dracula was almost called Count Vampire.
But I was dropping the piss. Was like, what if you've got a speech impediment
Yes.
like me and
So
you're thinking of vampire?
she did put in here, you know, too much crab mayo caused a nightmare that Stoker made into Dracula or Count Vampire. Who knows what it may have been called, or if he just stopped eating crab mayo, would Dracula have become a floofy bunny?
He may
Could have
have.
been, yes.
You don't know.
Dracula has appeared in almost 300 odd movies and is head of Sherlock Holmes, which
There's a few. Yeah, there's also a few actors that have played
yes,
Sherlock Holmes and Dracula as well, which
you
I
did.
find very
I honestly
interesting.
think I
And
know it's
probably
going to
forgot
sound
to put it
the
on
movie would probably be absolutely horrible, but I would love to see Robert Downey Jr. as Dracula.
Oh yes, but I'd like him fighting. Like maybe if they do like a kind of another Sherlock Holmes, but they did it like more of a supernaturally. Like they have done it with like someone coming back from the dead and stuff. But again, it was all trick of the eye and things like that. It'd be good if they actually did something supernatural. But that's just me.
1922, Bram Stoker's estate sued the film Nosferatu for breach of copyright.
And so did Enola Holmes. They got it from Sherlock Holmes as well. When Enola came out, they wanted to sue because
Yes.
of likeness and copyright.
Apparently, Dracula was said to have a thick mustache. This was according to Bram himself. Ooh, the mustache. Last one is Draculin is a protein found in the saliva of vampire bat.
Yes, but she was actually named after the vampire.
Yes.
It was named after Dracula.
They were
Apparently.
very fun facts.
The facts, but I thought they were fun facts for me. Fine. It's usually
You
that
did.
finds all the facts.
You did
but I thought I
absolutely
was
great.
doing good today by doing it
And
all.
quite honestly, I definitely know when it comes to Dracula, that is something that you and I both have a long-standing, heartfelt relationship with. No, thought all the facts were great. Research that you did is absolutely phenomenal. And even the little backstory and the lore was really good too. So, first and foremost, there is a disclaimer for this channel. There's a lot of profanity, a lot of sexual innuendos that we talk about on this channel. Yes, adult content. And everything of that nature. Spoilers as well. Yes, that is a huge disclaimer. We do have spoilers on this channel. We do have adult conversations. We are ourselves. We're just here to have a good time. We want people to know the whole thing about all this. So there is a disclaimer. If you don't know if you can handle the spoilers, the adult content, anything like that, then this channel may not be for you. Questions, comments, conversation pieces that you guys would like to our top two. Well, yeah, I mean it is pretty much top two.
Top two, not top three. Because really.
But if you guys did like that,
remember to like, share, comment, and also go check out the other platforms from the Buzzsprout link. If you don't have Spotify or YouTube, you can listen to it on Amazon Music and a bunch of other places too, like Google Podcast too.
This has been your host, Luna Rising. And
I have been Darcy Darkness. And this is Confessions from the Coffin. And we'll be back with
later
Confessions from the Darkside.